Well, in 2021, Nigeria's economy and education faced tough challenges. COVID-19 and its problems also played critical roles in determining where the country was headed. The crisis between the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, and the Nigerian government is still ongoing, while the economy tested Nigerians across social classes. With significant GDP growth recorded in the second and third quarters of the year, the average Nigerian is yet to feel the pulse of the growth. Education keeps floundering, the economy keeps struggling, and the year leaves a lot to talk about. Welcome to our year end of the run on VSA. I'm Sulaiman. Nigeria's education has deteriorated progressively since 1999, with ASUU, SSANU, NASU, and many more trade unions locked in talks with the Nigerian government. In the last 22 years, Nigerian universities have been on strike for a cumulative period of 4 years. Now, the issue has been about finances and the manner of treatment of the Nigerian government. Now, the University Transparency Accountability Solutions and Integrated Payroll and Personnel Information System are still issues of concern. Economically, Nigeria has fared only averagely with GDP progression recorded in the second and third quarters. Inflation has also fallen after surging for most parts of the year. An unemployment rate of 27% and poverty rate at 40%. And growing inequality remain a Herculean challenge in Nigeria. Joining me to look at this is Professor Emmanuel Osodeke. He is the National President, Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, and Dr. Tunji Ogunyemi. He is a Senior Lecturer in Economic History, Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. Gentlemen, good to see you both, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let's start with you, Professor Osodeke. We've had you on the program before, and you've been speaking, quite frankly, lately about education in Nigeria. Let us away from the strike action, let's look at it objectively. How will you rate Nigeria's education sector in 2021?
Thank you very much. From all standards, including even those in the government circle, it is clear that the educational sector is one of the poorest in the world. Very poorly rated, very poorly funded, and that is why you can see the trend. The Nigerian people, the so-called leaders, those who have access to funds, are taking their children out of the country. They are running away from the system they have destroyed. So that is the problem. Whether at the primary, at the secondary, that no more exists anyway, at the university, higher education, polytechnic, is the same problem, poor funding. And that is the problem we're having. So until we decide to know that there's a crisis in Nigerian university system, until we know that there's a state of emergency is needed in Nigerian university system, we will be at the same level. And today it's costing this country so much money. We are spending so much money to fund education in another country, and no country is sending any of their children here to also help us fund our system, because the standard, the equipment, the facilities are all in the deteriorated state. So that is the problem we're having. And until we have a government that will have the heart, because the heart of any country, of any economy, is education. And when the education is down, every other thing that we have in Nigeria today will be down. Security, health, production, what have you, all will be down. And that's where we are. For more than 20 years, this country have abandoned education, and we're all paying the price today. And I hope we have a government that will have the heart to declare the state of emergency in the Nigerian education system, revamp the system so that they can bring their children home, and other country can send their people here, and we can have quality lecturers coming from that country to learn to us to rebuild our system. So that's where we are. The state is pathetic.
Let me bring in Dr. Ogunyemi. We both have had that conversation again, especially when we had the World Teachers Day, Dr. Ogunyemi. Listening to Professor Osodeke, you're also a practitioner, you're in the system. It becomes very difficult to ask if there were gains recorded. But is it that the situation with the Nigerian, education system is not being tabled properly before the government, knowing full well that we also have some academics and people who are from the universities in government?
Thank you. It's a matter of priorities, really. It's a matter of priorities. And you judge or measure the priorities of any government from its budgetary provisions. That is, if a government has decided that education shall be its priority, shall be an engine, an instrument of turning around the economy, the social system, and of exporting high-quality individuals, if you like, professionals outside of this country, then you will see it in its budgetary provisions. Now, what is the budgetary provision for education in Nigeria in the last 20 years? Absolutely less than 25%. Now, UNESCO has advised that not less than 26, about a quarter of the budget of a country, its expenditure size, should be committed to education. I tell you, in this year's budget, 2021, education is just about 3.6%. And education that is that poorly funded in the last 30 years, to the extent that there was never a time in the last 30 years that education ever accounted for anything close to 10%, let alone 25% or 26%. So whatever you invest in education, you get the product. So if you are not investing in education, it also actually means that you're going to get poor quality teachers, poor quality administrators, not very motivated students, and of course, poor standards. That's exactly what we have. So you can't hit your cake and have it. If you are not investing in education, then it means that you will get poor education. It's as simple as that.
Professor Osodeke, this is mind-boggling. Listening to Dr. Ogunyemi, he said it's all about setting your priorities right and looking at it critically and looking at the budget provision. It doesn't show some form of seriousness. Now, ultimately, this will affect the economy, but let's still stay with education. You talked about the structure, you talked about the welfare, you talked about quite a lot of other things. How is the conversation going to setting the priorities right?
Thank you very much. If you have looked at all our agreements since the 1980s till now, one of the priority there is percentage of the national budget to education. And we have always preached and agree on this issue of giving 25% of the budget to education, but it was never implemented by government. So that is our crisis. It has been there for a long time. From the 1992, 2009, and the one we are negotiating now is the same trend that we are having. Any country that refuses to fund its education is creating room for the chaos that we are seeing today. So that is it. Like my colleague there said, if you check in the past 10 years, which is the worst, we never had any year with more than up to 7% of budgetary allocation to education. It used to be more than that. In the 60s, we shared the 60s, during the era of Awolowo and co, they were giving up to 30% to education. And the influence was there. UI was one of the best in the world. But today, the present setup have questioned about education. You know what? Not the theory. It's not a theory of cascading mediocrity. You appoint a mediocrity to an office, you want those lower than him to be there. And those who are appointed want those lesser than them to be there. And in the process, if the best break come to the system, they will ruin their system in terms of, you know what I mean, what they normally do in a Nigerian political system. So Nigeria need to get it right. In the next election, Nigeria should vote for any president who will give a concrete evidence that will fund education up to the 26% as recommended by UNESCO. That is the only way to go. We're already in crisis, and we can only come out of this crisis by funding education appropriately, not taking our children and running abroad as they are doing so. Nigeria need to tell our people when they come to campaign, the first thing they should tell them is bring your children home. Bring your children to primary school, bring your children to our secondary school, bring your children to polytechnic, bring your children to university. That should be the first thing they would tell them. If they don't bring them home, they should not vote for them.
Well, Dr. Ogunyemi, I'm trying to look at, I'm quite sure you also must have lost some students, to some universities abroad. Looking at what is happening today in Nigeria specifically, a lot of people have started en masse to go to places like Finland and a couple of other places where education is top on the list of, such government. Now, let's start, looking at what obtains in other climes and what Nigeria is doing vis-a-vis what Nigeria did in the First Republic. Still about setting the priorities. What are the key things Nigeria should be doing as it moves into 2022?
I assume that question is for me.
Yes, Dr. Ogunyemi, that's for you.
Exactly. Now, you see, a nation that is interested in anything called development will first of all pick education. And after education, we look at issues that have to do with security. Now, in Nigeria, the problems with us really is that we love high-sounding, high-falutin titles. We even want some of these titles to come from the educational institutions. Some people are dashing to themselves PhD honoris causa everywhere. But we're actually doing too little. So what should we do for education? It's actually to start from teacher education. Teacher education, and then ensure that the right motivation is there. Recruit people based only on the merit and the capacity to deliver, not on political correctness that we have now. To the extent that nowadays, people now establish even universities like rural amenities to benefit their rural areas. And we need to stop that. It is not going to help us at all. So what we need to do are, one, teacher education, increasing allocation to education under our budget, and three, ensure that there is monitoring and evaluation of the process, such that we are able to weed out those who ought not to be in the educational system at all. Those are just tagging around and just doing nothing in the system. And then educational administration is also key. We need to look at that. It is only those who care, who actually want to impart knowledge, that should be managed education or establishing secondary schools, primary schools, kindergarten. These are to be, areas that only professionals should be playing, and not just businessmen. Unfortunately, we have almost considered our secondary school education, primary school education to businessmen, and it's a shame. So they feed the university and the polytechnic system with poorly trained and poorly motivated students. So I think we should get those four things right.
Yeah, Professor Osodeke, I know you want to add to what he said. Quite frankly, these are very important. He made mention of teacher education. You have to have the requisite, knowledge and expertise before you can actually, impart knowledge. He also talked about the recruitment process. Today, and I also noticed that it has also been some of the key things ASUU has been talking about, education administration. Tell us more on that, and let us in on what exactly the situation is at the moment, especially in Nigerian universities.
Thank you very much. When some of us were growing up in the villages, you could get admission in King's College. Is that possible today? When we were growing up, it's possible for some of the poor man deep in the village to get a scholarship, a federal government scholarship to go to school. But today, all those things by corruption have been taken over. You have a scholarship, you go to the children of the rich. You cannot go to such colleges I have mentioned when you don't have somebody who will take you there. So those are the problems we have. In Nigeria today, how many times you see a proper advert for any position in this country? It's not there. People are just recruited through the back door. People pay for jobs, are recruited through the back door. Then you talk about this so-called federal character. You are talking about excellence and talking about federal character. You could not an interview, somebody is cost 80%, somebody is cost 50%, because of this federal character, you take 50 and leave 80. This is what we have created for ourselves by destroying this country. Today, when you go to Ghana, you have so many Nigerians. We pay hundreds of billion naira to Ghanaian government for their schools. But they are not paying one kobo to Nigeria. So the recruitment is very important. Today, let me also give you an example. The first Vice Chancellor of UI is an Igbo man. The first Vice Chancellor of Uniben is from the North. The first Vice Chancellor of Unijos, one of the Vice Chancellors of Unijos, is from Benin. Today, what do you have? Because of the poor recruitment system, your Vice Chancellor must come for your estate, it must come for your tribe, and wherever you go to local government, it must be for a town. So you are no more looking for excellence, you are looking for tribalism, federal character. So we are gradually killing the system. It's even bad now.
Well, I think there seems to be a glitch to that connection to Professor Osodeke. I come back to...
I got to a stage in Nigeria today, the work recruit anybody in Nigerian universities. Sorry, no, I'm back. But for a vice chancellor to recruit a professor in Nigerian university, he must go and take permission from the head of civil service, head of service of the federation, who is not equivalent to a professor. He will got to get permission from him, get permission from federal before he can recruit a professor. So we have killed this system. We have completely killed autonomy of universities. People now come here and intervene in universities. And like you said, universities are created all over. University of Health Sciences, University of whatever. So many of them that we have gone to a constituency project rather than building a university that can accommodate good students, good lecturing, and what have you. And in our agreement with government, we have sorted this.
Let me bring in Dr. Ogunyemi. I lost the connection to you, Professor Osodeke. Dr. Ogunyemi, I'm trying to wrap my, fingers around, some of the key things you talked about, the teacher education. Let's see if we can actually break some of these one after the other. And you also talked about the recruitment, which must be on merit. It's some of the key things that Professor Osodeke just reminded us. And quite frankly, it was, it crept on us gradually. A lot of people didn't even know when it started until the nation woke up and realized that especially positions of vice chancellor are given to people from such a locality. Now, you've been in the academia for some time now. What significance has 2021 had to do, especially in the education sector, in comparison with previous years?
Comparing to previous years, 2021 will mean a year that education fared too badly, very badly. You realize that we were just marching out of the total lockdown in 2020. And so instructions, instructions had to be done via either Zoom or via some, ICT mode, for which university teachers, polytechnic teachers, even primary and secondary school teachers had not been properly trained. So we were trying to package our educational system through a method, a didactic method that we were not used to. So instructions and the teaching system suffered as a result of that. And it was monumental suffering. Now, however, there was something very good about it, and that is our students seem to have understood now, and teachers have accepted now, that education and instruction need not be physical 100% any longer. It can now be done via the ICT, the methodologies of the ICT, and it can also be done by way of general observation in the system. So I think we will say that we lost more in 2021 than in previous years, but not as much as we did lose in 2020. 2020, I would say, was our annus horribilis, very horrible year in the annals of education in Nigeria, where instruction and teacher-student contact was completely cut off for not less than 6 months in that year. So I will say that we are just smarting out of that problem in 2021, and we have not completely grappled the matter. So I will plead with my colleagues, for example, in the teaching profession, to up the ante in the area of the ICT and be prepared for a future shock, such that we need to engage our students via the opportunities of information, communication, and technology, and that it should be part of our system of training now and teaching and instruction in the universities and even in secondary schools.
I think you're not far from reality, and of course, COVID-19 was a big one. Well, perhaps before we end the show, we'll also talk about some of the gains in the education sector that COVID, brought upon us. And one of it is what you just highlighted, talking about the ICT, which a lot of people have been able to bring to bear in the learning process. But again, I don't know if Professor Osodeke is back. If he is, then you may be, okay, good, I see you're back. Apologies, there was a glitch to your connection, so we lost you for a bit. Now let's start talking about the agitations of your union. And is it making any, or are you making any inroads? Looking at some of the key things highlighted and painted by both of you, Nigerians will also like to know if you've been able to make some form of inroads so that people know what to expect in future in terms of education.
Thank you very much. We still have 3 critical issues that have not been resolved. Number 1 is the one you mentioned, the UTAS and IPs. You see, if you have access to the immediate, the just released, the Auditor General report, you see that IPs is nothing. And we have created UTAS, which they said they are testing. And for the report they gave to us, in all the issues, the union scored about 77 in all the issues, percent. In all the issues they tested. On end users assessment, we scored more than 85%. And they still wrote back that they cannot apply it yet. Meanwhile, the IPs they are using all along, destroying all the public sector, was never tested. So that is one. So we want the government to go and take, we can do all these things that we are getting abroad. The country pays so much for IPs on yearly basis, which you can invest in the education system and use the solution that we have provided. 2, the issue of renegotiation. That renegotiation captures all the issues. Sources of funding, how do you fund the system, is well indicated, but they have refused to sign that agreement. 2, I need to say this, when the agreement was signed in 2009, the professor earned on the average between $2,000 and $3,000 per month. Today, a professor earns less than $700. So how would that attract the best brain in this country to go and lecture and in a month you earn $700, which is what a cleaner will earn in other countries? And that agreement that we have negotiated, the draft agreement, capture all these issues, which they have refused to sign. Then the issue of proliferation of universities, that governors wake up and proliferate university. Every senator is holding a bill to establish a university. That it should stop. Let's fund the old ones. We also agree that there is a need for need assessment fund for government to, on an annual basis, release 220 billion naira to Nigerian universities nationwide to upgrade the facilities and bring them at par with others you have in the world. To attract the best brain, to keep the best brain, and ensure that our children are well trained. I can assure you that the country is paying heavily. In the 70s, early 80s, you never heard of building collapsing in Nigeria when we were producing the best engineers, best structural engineers. Today, because of the poor laboratory, poor facilities, every day, even a 21 building collapsing in Nigeria. That tells you a sign that the country is in a crisis. Until we go back and revamp our education, we don't know what is happening in the head. People who are dying, why are they dying? Are they being treated by doctors who are well trained? These are the questions we should ask ourselves. Everything we are importing today we can produce if we fund our education properly. So those are the issues that are still outstanding that we believe government can easily do if they declare the university system, the education system as a priority and agree that they will implement what we agreed on in 2009 on a yearly basis, look for money and release 200 billion to Nigerian university. If you do that over 5 years, you will revamp this system and we'll have a university that can compete with anyone. We don't have to send our children to Ghana. We don't have to send our children to Benin, where in some cases they spend 6 months and come back as engineer and doctor. We have to be very careful. We're in a critical situation.
Professor Osodeke, before I go to Dr. Ogunyemi, let me stay with you quickly because now listening to you, what readily comes to mind is the gist in Nigeria that the government has paid a certain amount of money to your union. Can you confirm this and what it entails?
the government pays some money to the Nigerian university system. They have paid 20 billion as need assessment fund, which is instead of 220. This was supposed to serve as a sign of commitment that they will release the balance 200 billion, which they have not done. On need assessment, they paid 22.127 billion as an academic allowance across the country. And let me also explain to Nigerians, we have told government any day you meet the staff requirement of university, don't pay anybody need assessment, any allowance. The ratio of academic staff to students in Nigeria, as agreed by National University Commission, is between 1 to 9 students and 1 to 15 students. That is, if you have one lecturer, you have to take care of 9 to 15 students. But today, what do you have? In one university, you have between 1 and 200. It's on university 130, 1 to 30, 1 to 50. So the average lecturer is doing extra work. When I was at university, every 3 months in a year, the lecturer will go on vacation. They go outside the country, go and rest for some time. But in Nigeria today, no lecturer go on vacation. You are finishing your regular program, you are having PG program, you are teaching SS this thing. That is what we have today. And we are saying, for people doing this SS work, pay them for doing the SS work so that they can take care of themselves. That is the in allowance. And they are owing us more than 8 years arrears of this academic allowances. So those are the problems outstanding. And let me also tell you that it is because of the intervention by a number of people, the students, some parents, and more importantly, intervention by the NIREC, Nigeria Interreligion Council, headed by Sultan and the president of CAN, that did the final intervention and said within the next few weeks, they will bring both sides together and resolve the issues. So we are waiting. We are not letting down our guard. We are waiting for that intervention, and we hope that they will do it as quickly as possible, and government should do the needful to avoid further crisis in the system.
Well, it's a faith I dare say that Nigerians share with you and other Africans. Let me come quickly to Dr. Ogunyemi. You know, Nigeria recorded increased GDPs in the second and third quarter, but the household remittance has barely improved or even worsened. Help us make sense of this, you know, if you can.
What it means, really, the statistics, the numbers actually show that the Nigerian economy was able to get out of recession just within 1 quarter. Just within 1 quarter. How we're able to do that, I wouldn't be able to, I can't say that now. But I know for sure that the statistics are impeccable. So it means that the Nigerian economy is very resilient, very, very strong. The only thing that is there is the management style in the economy. So we have inflation that has eased just a little, and unemployment also have eased. Previously it was 33%, now it's about between 27 and 29%. So we know for sure that the Nigerian economy is showing some signs of improvement. But signs of improvement only in numbers. The truth of the matter is that when it comes to the real disposable income of the Nigerian person, we have actually regressed rather than progressed. And we look also up to government in terms of improvement in the fiscal activity of government. But the problem is that government is showing us clearly now that it has very little capacity to generate revenue. And if government, the largest single investor in the economy, does not grow its revenue, there is no way that it will be able to invest significantly except it goes our borrowing. Now, our borrowing is becoming extremely dangerous, utterly dangerous. Our borrowing is threatening to be between 37 and 40% of our GDP. That's very, very dangerous. So we need to put some brakes on that in order not to stifle the system. But that does not mean that government should fold its arms and do nothing. So if government borrows for the purposes of capital expenditure and invests it in infrastructure, very, very important infrastructure, especially educational infrastructure, as well as security infrastructure, then the possibility of our coming out completely of economic crisis in the next 3, 4, 5 years may be possible. Otherwise, I do not foresee the possibility of any of the Nigerian, the average Nigerian, getting out of serious problems of rising inflation, unemployment, and a breakdown in the social system.
Sorry to cut you here, Dr. Ogunyemi. I just realized you did, a double here now, linking that good, talking about Nigeria's GDP to what may ultimately happen. It goes back to how you started, if the priorities are right. And also looking at the numbers and also talking about the borrowing culture of Nigeria. And you say, if also that is, put to good use, especially in the right sector, as mentioned by yourself again, education, then Nigeria will be at top of where it's headed. Let me stay with you a bit here, Dr. Ogunyemi, before I go back to Professor Osodeke, and it has to do with breaking this down. You've seen the budget for the coming year, yet we're looking at 2021, but looking at the budget, the culture of budgeting system in Nigeria, would you say is the best to help the country, especially reprioritize its key objectives for national growth?
Oh, yes, of course. One thing that we cannot take away from the records of our budgeting and planning system in the year 2021 are these. Number one, that we have been able to come out with a plan. See, we have been spending money through our budget without actually doing economic planning. In this year, the Federal Republic of Nigeria has come up with a planning period of 2021-2025. That is salutary. So, regards to those people in the Ministry of National Planning and Budget. Then, we are also intending to spend the sum of 16.39. That's what the President submitted. But the National Assembly has passed 16.7 trillion naira budget. Well, that's fair, but that is still significantly very small. When you compare, when you check out that is actually about 40 billion American dollars. That's next to nothing. Barely enough to generate electricity in comparable instances in Africa, like in South Africa. But we have been able to achieve something, and that is the stability in the budgetary process, such that the budget is now ready even before the year runs out. So that we expect, for example, that the President of the Federal Republic will sign the budget early in January, and then we can hit the ground running in January, rather than wait for endless delays in the budgetary process. I think the federal government has done well in those areas. However, in terms of the investment species, that is the direction of investment in our budget, we need to do more in the area of capital expenditure. Now, the federal government is planning to spend 16.7 trillion naira, according to the National Assembly's approval. But do you know that a quarter of that will go into servicing debt, and about 60% of that, in fact 68%, will go into payment of salaries, overheads, and other things like wages. So what is actually left for capital investment? Absolutely next to nothing. Then finally, we need to do something about our revenue to debt ratio. Right now, our current revenue to debt is 97%. In other words, if you take it hypothetically, if Nigeria were to hand 100 naira, then we spend 97 naira out of the 100 naira in servicing debt. Servicing, not paying debt, not paying the principal, just servicing. So we need to do something about our revenue to debt ratio. We are doing too poorly in those areas. I did not mean that we have been borrowing. Nigerian system would have shut down, because we are showing signs that we are not financially healthy in the country.
Let me come to Professor Osodeke. It comes back to the ivory towers, Professor. One would have expected, research and a whole lot coming from the ivory towers to also help in the government, forge ahead. Is that happening in Nigeria's universities?
Thank you very much. The crisis of Nigerian government. They believe that the only people who can solve their problem are the foreigners. Every ministry today, they are dancing to the tune of the IMF and World Bank. Our budgetary system is determined by foreigners. These are so-called envelope system. The budget is not based on demand. It's based on an envelope. They say they put 50 million in your envelope, that is your own, as they are told by their masters. So until they leave those masters and start looking inwards, I will give you a typical example. We're talking about these IPs and UTAs. It took us 3 months to develop UTAS, which by all standards passed all this test. But the IPs they brought from outside the country that is destroying everything, paying people whatever they have, was made outside the country without a test. So that is the crisis we have. The Nigerian government don't like to consult the university. They don't want to go near the university to ask for their opinion on issues. There is this thing they call the triple helix principle, which, good enough, the third one is trying to push today, that there should be a relationship between the government, the university, and the industry. The university provide the brain, provide the knowledge, the government support the funding, and the end users is the public. The triple helix is working so well in China. We have been espousing this, but the governments are not interested. They would prefer to use the word, we are going outside to look for foreign partners. Which country outside the world will want you to develop more than them? They want you to be down, so that they keep on coming here saying that people to make money here. So until the government start looking inwards at our people, if ASUU can develop UTAS within 3 months at no cost to government, and on a yearly basis we are paying billions of naira to some foreign companies on modality or mode for paying just salary, that is the crisis we have. None of the government want to fund the system. They don't want to fund research in the system so that develop our system. And we hope that we have the next government that will have the right heart to say, let's look inwards on whatever we want to do. The way this COVID came in, call UI, call 2 or 3 universities, we are giving you this amount of money. This money they throw around to this committee that is, I don't know what they call this committee. Recently, we have just destroyed millions of vaccines that we may be paid for or whatever. But if we challenge this university, the Faculty of Medicine, Faculty of Pharmacy, they will develop your vaccine for you. We don't need to ask to go and beg. Other countries where you are getting for, the government spend money in those universities to develop vaccines. We don't have to go abroad. But our government prefer to use this word, we are looking for foreign partner. Until they stop this so-called foreign partner. And many are doing it because they want to collect DTA. Until we stop these foreign partners and look inwards, UI and ABU, Ile-Ife, UNN, this is one of the best universities in the world. The brains are still there. If Nigeria leave this country, they perform well. Why can't we develop ourselves so that we don't know how to look for this foreign partner? So that is the way to go. We are ready in the universities. We want government to challenge us on this issue, and we'll provide the answer.
Let me go to Dr. Ogunyemi. Dr. Ogunyemi, you know, every time I speak with academics, you know, like yourselves, I keep wondering, I keep asking the question which I just asked, why can't a government, you know, rely on its experts, you know, the expertise of its people, like yourselves, in terms of every sector of a country's national life? Let us in on what exactly is happening, because sometimes it will seem as if, you know, some of the key research, you know, have been, you know, are being ignored by the government.
That's exactly the truth. You can't be more correct. See, the government of the Nigerian state, either at the subnational level or at the central level, do not consult their academics. They don't. Reason? 3 reasons I give you. Number 1, we are not politically correct people. Oh, academics are not politically correct. Because we'll tell you the truth and we don't care. Because we are not looking for your money. We are not looking to get rich overnight. Great academics are looking for honor and integrity. 2 is that we don't win votes. I mean, academics are political liabilities, really. How many votes can an academic win, even from his own world? If he goes home, they don't respect him. They just see him in terms of someone who is just intelligent only, but not in terms of turning around. And number 3, the Nigerian government does not see any link between intellectualism and good governance. In most developed countries, they link their intellectuals with their governance. But in Nigeria, do you know the people we link with governance? It is those who have the capacity to create maximum damage, either in their motor parts or in different parts of their, you know, of the inner recesses of Nigeria's, you know, violent crimes. These are the people they rely on to do their campaign, to win votes, or at least to conquer votes from unsuspecting voters. So academics are too, if you like, too clean for the Nigerian political leadership. So, in fact, they see us as people who will spoil the broth when we come on board. Because, one, we will never take any bribes to be able to do anything that is good. No, we won't. So, that's the problem. And it's a matter of attitude and social consciousness. I think the Nigerian social consciousness needs to be improved upon, at least a notch higher than we had, in recent times. That's the problem. In the days of yore, when ASUU was in charge, Zik of Africa was in charge of Eastern region, and Ahmadu Bello was in charge. They linked their academics. Oh, they consulted them. During that time, one of the best trained educationists in Nigeria was in charge of the Western region. The highly cerebral Adekunle Ajashi was in education. I mean, these were the people. Anthony Enao, one of the highest celebrated journalists in this country, was in charge of information. They put round pegs in round holes. And, they were constantly consulting academics until the military came. The 1980s was our problems, and the military became our Achilles heels. So it's a shame they do not consult us. That's the truth.
Well, I think honestly, because looking at COVID-19, which is another aspect, and I can't remember whether it was Professor Osodeke or yourself talking about vaccine. Until this moment, some scientists in Nigeria are saying that, funds are not, being budgeted for people to get into the laboratories and work out a solution that is fit for the African people and fit for Nigerians. Now, is it just about the funds? As research shows, even academic staff in public universities, don't appear interested in delivering quality too, Professor Osodeke.
Thank you very much. You see, when you go to our shelves, there are a lot of research people have done that are there on the shelf. Nobody is touching them. In agriculture, in medicine, in engineering, they are there. But as an academic, you couldn't have a research and you have a breakthrough and you can't implement them. You need a third party, which is the tribalist that talk about, which is the industry. In my university, there have been a professor who have been campaigning that he has a cure for HIV. He has a cure now he has a solution to COVID. And to test this so-called cure, nobody has interested. And you have them all over. So can a lecturer who earns $700 a month go to implement the final product? So that is the problem. So we want Nigerians to patronize Nigerian academics, challenge its faculty. That's what they do inside the country. The government said, we are challenging you, develop this for us within the next 1 year, and we are providing the fund. How many governments have done that in Nigeria? Not that they would rather pay the money to some people outside who will come here and do little or nothing. Just like the fake or the expired vaccine we just got. Nigerians should know that we have the brain. The government should develop the system and challenge the academics, and will resolve all the problems.
Dr. Ogunyemi, what really readily also comes to mind is looking at the rot. Inasmuch as the rot in the system are being highlighted, we have seen so many Nigerians who have left the university system to other universities outside Nigeria doing, fantastically well. Look at Dr. Olutoye, the man who actually operated a fetus and put that back in the womb. Now, let us in on what exactly is happening. Yes, we need to know how hard, how difficult it is to impart knowledge into, to students, and still these people become champions around the world.
See, just check the example of the University of Ibadan, where we had the highly cerebral Professor Tam David West, professor of virology. Professor of virology, he trained more than 200 experts on issues of virology in this country, and they are still in existence. But I tell you, more than 60% of them have emigrated outside of this country. But we still have some within this country. The problem is that our government will just not consult us. That is the problem. Now, when an academic presents a research result and say, this can do this, this can do that, it behoves a responsible government to link that academic with the industry. And then or in the alternative, provide such funds that academic can clone himself in other postgraduate students and then expand knowledge within the realm. So it is not too difficult for academics to do what is right because we have been doing it. The problem is just the environment and then the poor, utterly poor remuneration. Some of us, when we tell you how much we actually earn in a month, you will be sad for the system. You will be sad for someone who has put in more than 20 years, has a PhD in his discipline, and has trained more than 10 other PhD holders in this country. You will be surprised what his take-home is. You will be amazed. So the truth of the matter has just been revealed to you by Professor Osodeke, who is our president. And he has actually showed you the truth of the matter. The further thing that we need to factor into our calculus is that let the government of the nation just recognize that teachers are also human beings and they need to be remunerated enough to be able to express themselves, at least earn something, a minimum, so that they will not sink in the oceans of the Nigerian economy. It's just reasonable. It's just reasonable.
Yeah, I think, well, you can't say much, on what exactly is being done by ASUU, your union. But again, listening to both of you, it's a sorry case for ending education for 2021. But let's see if we can start talking about, the bright side. Professor Osodeke, as Nigerians move into 2022, what's the way to the future of a better education system? How can ASUU and other, colleagues of yours help strengthen the education system?
Thank you very much. I think that's very good questions. And I believe that question should have been directed to the government. 2017, we started renegotiation. Our negotiations does not do with about salary only. It deals with about funding, deal with about welfare, it deals with autonomy and other issues. And on funding, you recall that in 1992, it is ASUU that came up with the proposal that led to what you have today as TED fund. Today, any university you enter, 90% of the capital project in those universities are all products of TED fund. And in our agreement, we have just have a draft. We are also developing that way that we can also assist the government to fund the system. But they are not interested. On welfare, you see, it's a universality, it's a university. You can't have, when I was a student in a state university, in the 80s, in my department, we have lecturers for 4 different countries: Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Sri Lanka, and Poland. 4 different countries sharing knowledge. But today, we are even going to the state that you enter a typical department university, all the lecturers are from one state. Is that how we are going to run universities? So it is there. So what we are saying is that, look, we are appealing to this government that it should realize the number 1 priority of the country should be education. 2, we should rescue the system. At the primary school, secondary school, they have been conquered by businessmen, like my colleagues Ogunyemi said, they have been conquered by businessmen. We don't know the type of certificate they are giving out. In the university, we're also there. That you have a university with 1,000 students producing 200 first class. It's against all the rule in the world. 1,000 students graduating, 200 first class, which means it's a business. The more first class you get, the more students you receive. Is that where we want to go? You have secondary school where people have A1 in 9 subjects, but the entire university, they can't write, they can't even fill a form. Is that the way we should go? Is that how it was in the 70s and 60s and 80s? So the government, we are, ASUU as a union, we are appealing to the government and Nigerian people to sign that agreement that for which you have a draft. And if signed and implemented, and the revitalization fund is also implemented, I can show you in 5 years, we'll be having students from all over the country, the world coming to Nigeria. We'll be having lecturers coming here to lecture. So that we'll have a university, not a village university or constituency project that we are seeing today. What we have today, I've gone to a private university where they had less than 160 students. And I myself, is that a university? And we're creating more. And they are even arguing that they want to benefit from tech fund. Tax paid by the Nigerian people, they want to benefit from it. And I've asked, if you start, were they compared to start those universities? And some of the political appointees are also conversing for them because they own universities. Were they compared to have those universities, to form those universities, or they did it just for business sake? Two, do they have any foundation that will fund those universities if tomorrow the man is no more around? So we are appealing to the government, sign that agreement that we agreed on in May this year, and from there Nigeria can start moving forward. At the federal, at the state is even worse. University and now construct project, a governor that cannot fund one university, establishing 4 more, 3 more, just to ensure that in my tenure I have 34 universities, and you are not funding one, you are not paying the lecturers. We must be serious about education in Nigeria. We must be serious. In the interest of our children, in the interest of the state we have ourselves today, there's this saying that any country that abandons the university is creating room for insecurity. And that's where we are now. People who should have been in universities, people who should have been getting a job with a degree, graduate 10 years with a degree, a first degree, and there is no job. We need to be serious.
Let me quickly bring in Dr. Ogunyemi to give us his final take on this. And quickly, Dr. Ogunyemi, weighing also on this as you round off for us, and it has to do with the culture. Once upon a time, the culture was, teachers, even lecturers, especially teachers, having their children in the same school where they teach. And that's not the culture anymore. How can this culture be brought back vis-a-vis what Professor Osodeke has said about politicians also patronizing the education system? Perhaps that may, just may, help the system.
When you see the evidence of people or teachers not putting their own children in the schools in which they teach, that tests you. In other words, they are passing a vote of no confidence even in themselves. But that tests you actually the extent to which such schools could be regarded as schools, properly so called. So it goes to funding, it goes to seriousness, it goes to the issue of priority. And except we set our priorities right with respect to education funding, to the proprietorship and administration of education, to teacher education, to issues that has to do with the welfare of the teacher, we aren't going to go anywhere. So I wish that my country be better managed. How I wish so, that my country be better managed.
Well, it's been a long year in a nation's story, and only better years can be expected. All hands listening to both of you must be on deck to improve the situation of the country and the people of Nigeria. Many thanks for being such a nice company, gentlemen, and have a pleasant 2022. I'm Sulaiman. Bye-bye.